What's going on, guys? Today we are recreating Black Lives Matter by BandoKay, Double L's and Abracadabra, produced by N to the A. If you didn't know already, 35% of all proceeds and profits from this song are going towards two youth charities. So if you haven't already, do buy that song or just keep on streaming that for that good cause. So in the tutorial today, we're going to be going through essentially just the main kind of introduction to the song and the first hook, rather than kind of meticulously going over every single detail to the song. This is kind of the most meat, really. So and that's why we're going to be going over these two parts today. So the first part of this song is that Coldplay Trouble sample, and the second part coming straight into the hook with Abracadabra. So interestingly, this sample here, Trouble by Coldplay, is actually only the second time that a sample has had clearance from Coldplay. The first of which was back in 2009 with Drake's Congratulations. So, you know, massive thing obviously for UK music, but also just for drill music in general. It's, you know, really, really cool. So let's kick off this remake with the first four bars, which is that Coldplay sample before getting straight into the hooks. Let's give that a listen now. So the first part of this introduction is, of course, that Coldplay sample. So the sample Trouble is kept exactly the same as the original in terms of the pitch and the tempo. Nothing else really changes apart from just this sample being chopped up into those three main chords, that G, E minor and B minor as well. So there's not much really different to this sample other than a few of the chops that you hear, particularly in bar 3 going into bar 4, which is when you then also hear that sweep on the EQ, kind of cutting off those highs and then bringing them slowly back into the mix to then make that drop into the hook a lot more impactful. So let's just listen to that section now to show you exactly what I'm talking about and how we can get that sweeping effect with the EQ. So how this sweeping sound is achieved is quite simple, and in order to do it, what I'm going to do is just remove the EQ that we have on this strip right now and just take it back to the start again. So let's open up a new instance of EQ on this channel strip, and this is what we've got here. So first things first, let's just bring the highs down here to about 1,200, 1,300 or so. That'll do just about there. And then what we're going to want to do is on the channel strip, change from read to touch. And what that means is that when we then play this section, anything we do to this EQ will then affect this track live in real time. So to show you how this effect is achieved, I'll just play these two bars and then just move this EQ back just to open up the track again to give that whole sweeping effect. Okay, so that should be done now. And if I just play these two bars back, you should be able to see the automation happening live in real time. There we go. Perfect. So that is the sample. And then the next part of this introduction is the hi-hats. So with the hi-hats here, it's a fairly standard sound that I've got, and I've got it from a drum kit called the Obbo pack, OBBO, and that's a pack that I got from drum kits on Reddit, which is a really good community for free drum kits and just, you know, being able to share sounds and samples with other like-minded people too. So if you haven't checked that out already, go onto drum kits and you can find this exact pack, the Obbo pack. So these hi-hats are from there, and it's a fairly standard pattern With the pattern, all I've done is just increase the velocity to around 120 just to make them kind of hit a little bit harder. And let's just give those a listen now. So those are the hi-hats, and essentially those hi-hats are the exact same throughout the hook as well. It's the same pattern, same velocity, everything can just be copied over. And so the third element of this introduction is this sound effect, just a gunshot. Again, this sound effect can be found in the oboe pack. And so, yeah, this is a fairly standard sound effect used in a lot of drill music. And this is what it sounds like dry. And what we did was just add in an echo on that. So that's with the echo. And these are the settings used for that. So a quarter there, and I'm fairly sure repeat color dry and wet are kept standard as well. So the fourth element to this introduction is a reverse crash. So this is a stock crash sample from Logic's Apple Loop library. So let's give that a listen now as well. And that just does a really good job of just introducing us and kind of building up into that hook section, almost as like a riser, but without as much drama of it. So let's give that first section another listen to see where we are right now. Perfect. All right, so jumping into the hook, let's give a listen to what we have on here, and then same way as the introduction, break it down track by track. Perfect. So let's kick things off with this sample up here. So as you can hear, that's a fairly similar pattern to what we have in the introduction. Again, just the original treble sample has just been chopped up into those three chords, G, E minor, and B minor. Okay, so as explained earlier, the hi-hats in this pattern are exactly the same as what we did in the introduction. So let's just have a little listen then to the kick and how that pattern's laid out as well. So originally those kicks were sounding pretty flat, pretty soft. So I've just done a couple things to make them hit a little bit harder. Now, for those of you who are using FL Studio, you can just go ahead and use that soft clipper, and that's just going to make them kick even harder. But if I just open up my mixer here, I can show you a couple things that I've done to this kick just to make them sound a little bit harder. Now, the first of which actually is just to do with the panning. Now, under panning, what I've done is add a binaural pan. So originally when you open up this binaural pan, this is what you're going to see. It's going to look like this, and essentially all that means is it's a bit in like stereo. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't really know the science behind this, how the hell it works. All I know is that if you just drag this down to the center, it's going to kind of create the kick in mono, basically. So it's going to be a bit more narrow, and then the sound's just going to hit a little bit harder because of that. And then the next thing to add on here is just a channel EQ. So these are my settings here. If you just pause the video, you'll be able to see exactly what I've done with this EQ. And the next part here is the compressor. So I've just gone on a Type R kick drum and just bring down the threshold ever so slightly and add a limiter there as well. So again, take a pause on the video and have a little look at what I've done there and apply it to your kick as well. Perfect. And the snares, again, fairly standard snare sound I've got here from the oboe pack again. So let's give a listen to this pattern over 4 bars. That sounds weird by itself, but you know it makes sense in the grand schemes of the pattern. Nothing really much going on with the snare there either. Next sound here would be an open hi-hat, which just happens at the start of every 4 bars. So let's give a listen to that in the context of the drum pattern itself. So it's just solo kick, snare, hi-hat, and the open hi-hat. So you'll probably be able to hear the echo on the open hi-hat there, which is the exact same echo that I did for the gunshot sound effect at the very beginning of the song. So that's the settings that I've got there. So next sound effect I've got is just this little weird click. Let's give it a listen to that again. So this is a really common sample used in like a lot of like early grime tracks, and so with this sample, I think I got this from a kit called the Esky kit, which is just a grime kit. Again, another one that I found or came across on drum kits on Reddit. So in the context of the drum pattern, that's what this sounds like. Perfect. So the next element of this hook is the 808. So let's give a little listen to this. So this is a sound that I got from a Metro Boomin kit. You can just see there on the track MB808. So again, from drum kits on Reddit, and it's just a really clean, quite minimal sounding 808. Usually on UK drill songs, you hear like really gritty, quite distorted 808s, and they're usually known as like drill source 808s. This one is a lot cleaner, and you know it works perfectly in the context of the song. It doesn't take over too much of the song. You don't hear loads of crazy glides. It really kind of allows the artists themselves to actually sit on top of the track and actually hear their lyrics a lot better as well. Perfect. So with this 808, this is the exact pattern here if you want to go ahead and copy that. And there's a few things that I did to this just to make it stand out more as well. So the first of which is in my ESX24 sampler, where I put this sound into, I've just gone ahead and changed a bit of the glide. So that's my glide setting there. So I've just added in a bit of glide there, and what that allows is a bit more flow between each of the notes without going completely crazy on glides and without them sounding really rigid as well. So that's the only thing I've changed on the ESX24 sampler. The next thing I've added to this is actually just a bit of distortion. So this is my distortion I've got here, which is distortion 2, and that can be found under distortion 2, and you just want to add that in stereo. So I've played around with this a bit just to suit this particular 808 in the context of this song. These are the settings I've used for it. You can go ahead and copy that. However, if you're using a different 808, then you might want to use a bit less distortion or a bit more depending on the sample. And so the channel EQ should be sitting on top of that. So let's just move that up there. So this is a channel EQ that I've used for the 808 as well. So you can go ahead, pause the video and copy those settings there as well. And the last thing I've done is just add a compressor. And so with this compressor, I've added in, it can be found under guitars and platinum bass. And so what I've done with this is under sidechain, you want your max on and the RMS. And essentially what you're going to be doing with this compressor is to sidechain with the kick, just to allow them to sit together a bit nicer in the mix. So if I just play, you'll be able to see this graph. You'll be able to see the meter kind of move every time the kick comes into the mix, and that's just showing that the sidechain is working there. Perfect, so that makes up all of the drums then in the song, and so the last element really that makes up this hook is actually just a tremoloed violin. And so this is what it sounds like by itself, and I'll play in the context of the song as well. Now with the song, it's ever so faint in the background. So essentially you can find this in the ESX24 sampler, and that'll be under factory, orchestral, strings, and then violins 1 tremolo. And what I've done with this, if I just go back into the ESX24 sampler again, is add a tiny bit of glide. So that's the value I've got there. Just again, allow them to sound a little bit more natural, as strings in VSTs can sometimes sound fairly robotic. And then just to add a bit more kind of humanizing natural element to them, I've also added an instance of Space Designer to give it a bit of reverb. And so again, just want to pause the video. These are the exact settings that I've used for this as well. Lastly, just got some channel EQ on here. That's just to cut out a bit of the lows there and just boost some of the highs. So that's without. And with. There we go. Perfect. Now with everything put together, this is what we have remade. And there we go. That is Black Lives Matter by BandoKay, Double L's and Abracadabra. If you do like the video, and do subscribe to my channel as well, and let me know in the comments what other remakes you want to see next.
Black Lives Matter.